Hello, Hovind. I am Jeremy, and today I am going to be educating you on your errors in interpreting the Bible. This is today's episode of helping Kent Hovind understand the Bible. Kind of an ironic topic, don't you think? You would think that since he's supposed to be a Christian, that he should have a perfect understanding of the Bible. Well, I'm here to tell you his understanding of the Bible is quite errored. First of all, he's a young Earth creationist. Now, you would think that young Earth creationism is a required belief system for Christianity. That's extremely far from the truth. Far from being a required belief system, it is actually quite the opposite. It ain't required at all. In fact, I would probably say that young Earth creationism is leading people away from the faith. Because young Earth creationism forces you to reject most of mainstream science. Nearly all of it. And that would be the main reason why a lot of people are leaving the faith. Young Earth creationism also refuses to answer most questions asked of it. Not just of science, but also of the Bible. Ironic, right? The heart of this video's topic is Scripture, so let's stick to Scripture. Now, I am a Christian, and I accept most mainstream science. I accept the Big Bang Theory, I accept an ancient age for the Earth, I accept an ancient age for the universe. And I am a Christian. I reject most of the teachings that Kent Hovind teaches. I reject most of the teachings that AIG teaches, ICR, you name the Young Earth Creationist organization, and I reject all their teachings. I do, however, accept the teachings of Biologos, an Old Earth Creationist organization. Reasons to Believe, another Old Earth Creationist organization. In fact, Kent Hovind had the honor of meeting the founder of Reasons to Believe, Hugh Ross. Yes, he does worship the same God as you, Mr. Hovind, despite what you like to believe. And he did do a good job in explaining his belief system to you. And like him, I do believe that the creation days were vast eras of time. 6 vast eras of time. Believing that the creation days were 6 literal 24-hour days makes no sense, because it just ain't in line with the writing of the Bible. Not only do the creation days not sound like 24-hour days, but they ain't the same way that Hebrews usually write 24-hour days. Hebrews don't write 24-hour days as morning to evening. They write them as one morning to the next morning. So since 24-hour days are not described the way that the creation days are described, they can't be 24-hour days. They have to be longer. And the Genesis flood, the Noah flood, doesn't make sense from a global point of view. All events in the Bible are recorded as local events. Even when the words worldwide are used, they are qualified as local events. Never once is a worldwide event ever referred to as encompassing the whole globe in the Bible. They're always qualified as being less than that of the entire globe. I will give a few scriptural verses in a minute. But back to the days of creation. You have the 6th day of creation. God plants a garden. And the Bible does say that he planted the garden. Not that he created it instantly, Hovind. He did not create it instantly. He planted it and waited for it to grow, which would, of course, taken longer than 24 hours. Not only that, but Adam. Yes, he was created mature. I agree with you there. But Adam was created without age. Mature, someone's height is not equivalent to someone's age. It would be if you had been formed in the womb of a woman, but since Adam had not been formed in the womb of a woman, Adam's height would not be equivalent to his age. Same would be true for Eve. Eve's height would not be equivalent to her age. Not only that, but Adam was told to name all the animals. Now, he didn't just give them random names he pulled out of his head. He gave them names that described their characteristics. Observed characteristics. So the lion was given a name that described its characteristics. The eagle was given a name that described its characteristics. The platypus was given a name that described its characteristics. Ants were given a name that described their characteristics. Bees were given a name that described their characteristics, and so on. Mantises, etc. All animals given names that describe their characteristics. Ducks, deer. I can go on and on with that list. It's practically endless. And what do you think Adam had to go through to learn those characteristics? A college course in zoology. So Adam had to be educated. He wasn't just implanted with the knowledge. He had to be educated, which took longer than 24 hours. Not only that, but not only did Adam have to be educated in zoology to know how to describe the characteristics of the animals, but he also had to be educated in botany to know how to take care of the plants and do the gardening. He also had to be educated in farming to know how to take care of the animals. So that's college courses in botany, zoology, farming. So that's a lot of college courses he was taking there. Longer than 24 hours. And the last bit of evidence for longer than 24 hours is when Adam meets Eve. When Adam was naming the animals, he noticed that all the animals had mates, and he did not. He did not have a mate. God puts Adam to sleep, takes DNA from Adam's side, and makes Eve. When Eve is brought to Adam, Adam says these famous and infamous words. At long last. No one that's only been waiting 24 hours would ever say, at long last. So, at long last means that that more than a single day had to have passed. More than a single literal day had to have passed. At long last would refer to years. So, since I've established that day 6 was clearly longer than 24 hours, just by looking at man's existence on day 6 of creation, let's look at the entry for day 7. Day 7 is just a few verses. It's opened but never closed. Day 7 is never wrapped up. It's never ended. And then in Hebrews 4, the Bible describes day 7 as still being open. God's day of rest. It describes day 7 as still occurring. That we're still in day 7. So if we're still in day 7, then of course it was longer than 24 hours because there's been 2,000 years just from the birth of Jesus. And not about 4,000 years if you go back to your flood time. Now, if you look at my belief system, that would be about 100,000 years, maybe 200,000 years. So that's a lot of time there. A lot of time that man has been around. A lot of time. Speaking of time that man has been around, the 6,000 years thing that you think the Earth is, 6,000 years old for the age of the Earth and the universe? Yeah, don't believe in that. I'll say it again. I agree with an ancient age for the universe and of Earth. I accept Big Bang cosmology. I accept modern geology and most of mainstream science. A young Earth creationist viewpoint is not required to be a Christian. I don't believe it, and most Christians don't believe it. So I've established that day 6 was longer than 24 hours. I've established that day 7 was longer than 24 hours. So if day 6 and 7 were longer than 24 hours, then why is it so hard to believe that the other 5 were also longer than 24 hours? That these were 6 vast eras of time. Why is that so hard to believe? Now, the global flood issue. Not only is there not enough water to cover the Earth in a global flood, and not only would any addition of water to the Earth steam cook it. That's right, any addition of water to the Earth would steam cook it, according to the math. Any addition of water to the Earth would steam cook the Earth. There'd be no survivors. Noah wouldn't survive, the animals wouldn't survive, no one would survive. Canopy theory, that canopy comes down and it raises the surface temperature of the Earth over 800 degrees Fahrenheit. Hydroplate theory, the water's shooting up from under the Earth and it raises the surface temperature to 1,300 degrees Fahrenheit. Either way, you're going to steam cook the Earth. So you're looking at a steam-cooked Earth, and Noah would have a serious air conditioning problem. So, turn to Genesis 6, where the flood is described. And you see in Genesis 8, the floodwaters start receding. Well, if the flood had been global, where did the floodwaters recede to? They can't recede if the flood had been global. Either you're looking at a Earth that is still flooded, which it obviously isn't, or you're looking at an Earth that is a pure desert, which it obviously isn't. So, from the Bible itself, only a local Noah flood makes sense. Now, you non-believers out there may be saying, if the Noah flood had only been local, why have a boat in the first place? Why not just have Noah and the animals escape to higher ground? Good question. The boat served as a pulpit for Noah to preach upon. The boat was big enough that if others had listened to Noah, he would have been able to take them with him. And the animals were non-migrational animals. They don't migrate. They wouldn't have been willing to migrate. They would have needed Noah in order to survive the flood, because the animals were native to the Mesopotamian area, and they didn't migrate. Animals that are native to Mesopotamia and don't migrate, then you're looking at animals that would have needed Noah in order to survive the flood. So there's the animal problem solved. Since we're looking at only animals from the Mesopotamian area, we don't have to worry about the size of the boat, because there would have been plenty of room, because it was a local flood that was exaggerated in size and scope because of how early it happened in human history. This local flood would have happened before any major human migrations. So, rather than it happening only 4,000 years ago, you'd be looking at a flood that happened 100,000, 90,000 years ago. That's 90,000 years ago. Not 9,000, 90. So, 100 to 90,000 years ago for a local Noah flood. That's so early in human history that the idea would have been ingrained in us, and we would have thought of it as a global flood because of how early it happened in human history, before any major migrations of humans outside of northeastern Africa and the Middle East. And like I said, none of the events in the Bible that are described as being worldwide are ever described as being global. So not only does the time thing work against you, Hovind, but the fact that none of the events in the Bible are ever described as being global. Not even the flood. As proof that none of the events in the world are ever described, none of the events in the Bible are ever described as being global, I'm going to take you and quote one of the articles from one of my favorite websites, godandscience.org, an Old Earth Creationist website. Ever heard of Rich Deem? This is his website. And I'm going to search worldwide. Worldwide flood. Now let's see here. Why the flood says it must be local. Why the Bible says the flood must be local. Let's see here. Whole earth. The Hebrew words for whole earth are kol eretz. Genesis 13:9 refers to the whole earth as the land of Canaan. Genesis 41:57 refers to the whole earth as the place that was starved. And obviously the people from the Americas did not go to Egypt. Exodus 34:10 refers to the whole earth. There would be no need to add nor among any of the nations if all the earth referred to the entire planet. Leviticus 25:9 refers to the whole earth. The Hebrews were not required to sound a horn throughout the entire earth. Leviticus 25:24, another whole earth that doesn't refer to the entire earth. Judges 6:37. You're starting to see a trend here, aren't you? 1 Samuel 13:3. 2 Samuel 18:8. All of these verses are referring to the whole earth, but not to the entire globe. Starting to see a trend, right? So there's your trend. Since none of the other biblical verses that refer to Kol Eretz refer to the entire globe, why would Genesis 6 Kol Eretz refer to the entire globe? So there's your evidence. The flood doesn't refer to our entire globe, because none of the other events that use the words Kol Eretz refer to the entire globe. And then you go to these generations. The generations. Let's see, generations. Our generations. If you add up all the generations, you come up with that amazing number of 6,000, right? Well, the number 6,000, the best you could get from it would be humans existing on the earth for only 6,000 years. Not that the earth itself was 6,000 years old. And even that number is skeptical. So, no, those generations would not help you out, because that 6,000 years would not give you the age of the earth. So there. Far from a young earth point of view being required, it's not even needed. And the teachings of Paul tell us that we can trust our eyes. The teachings of Paul in the New Testament tell us that we can trust our eyes. So if we can trust our eyes, then we can trust our measurements. Which means, if our measurements tell us that the earth is old, then the earth must be old. If our measurements tell us that the universe is old, then the universe must be old. So yes, Christians can believe in an old earth, Hovind. It was nice talking to you, Hovind. Hope you now better understand the Bible. Let's cover one more thing. The tree of life. Makes no sense from a young earth point of view. Why would there need to be a tree of life if aging didn't happen before the fall of man? If death didn't happen before the fall of man? That's right. I believe that death, physical death, took place before the fall of man. Why would the tree of life need to be there if we didn't need any rejuvenation? That's what the tree of life would do. It would rejuvenate us. If we didn't need rejuvenation, why would there be a tree of life? The tree of life makes no sense from a young earth point of view. None. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that the animals were herbivores before the fall of man. I think You are overly anthropomorphizing the animals. You and all young Earth creationists overly anthropomorphize animals. You get too emotionally attached to the animals. I'm not saying you shouldn't get emotionally attached to the animals. I'm saying that you shouldn't endow animals with human qualities. You shouldn't anthropomorphize the animals. They're not human. And it's this anthropomorphizing of the animals that makes you refuse to accept an ancient age for the earth. So since the tree of life makes no sense from your point of view, explain it to me. Explain the tree of life to me. Now remember, people, the tree of life is a different tree from the tree of knowledge. And the tree of life is described again in the book of Revelation. Why would the tree of life need to be described again in the book of Revelation? The tree of life makes no sense from a young earth point of view. None. So there. The young earthers have a terrible understanding of the Bible. It is not required for you to be a Christian to believe in a young earth. Biologos proved it. Reasons to believe proved it. God and Science proved it. Several Old Earth creationist organizations have proved that you do not need to believe in a young earth to be a good Christian. And I can also show you that believing in an old earth is not a compromise. It is far from being a compromise. St. Augustine is the guy who founded what we today call Old Earth Creationism. He existed back in the 5th century AD, long before Charles Darwin came along. In order for Old Earth Creationism to be a compromise, it would have had to have come into existence after evolution. It did not. It came into existence long before evolution. 5th century AD is not 19th century AD. So there. Hovind, you're wrong. I hope I have explained the Bible to you a little better now. I hope you now understand why your interpretation is wrong and why Old Earth Creationism is not a compromise. So there. Goodbye, Mr. Hovind.